You can see the damage left behind with messages that read, quote, Israel is doing genocide. We do want to bring in the Congresswoman now to talk more about what happened. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Thank you.
First off, can you kind of explain to me how you found out that this had been done to your office, how you came across this, and once you did come across it, what were you thinking?
Well, this happened at my local office in McAllen, Texas. And honestly, in South Texas, we have a small Jewish community, a vibrant Jewish community, but a small Jewish community. So it actually came as a shock that this would happen in McAllen, Texas, in South Texas, where people are really warm, they're loving, tolerant, and to see this type of anti-Semitism and this level of vandalism and violence was really shocking to me.
Does this speak to the community in any way? Because as you mentioned, there is a Jewish population there. Does this say anything about the community and their feelings?
As I said, South Texas is a warm and a loving community. The Jewish community here, it's a small community, but an active part of the community. I've spoken with the local rabbis. I've shared with them my support. I've told them if there's any kind of anti-Semitism, any kind of vandalism that happens at their synagogues, that they are to let me know so that we can get involved. I want the Jewish community here in South Texas to know that I remain steadfast in my support of them. They can count on me to always stand for Israel. What happened at my office does not deter me, and I will not be afraid to continue to stand with Israel.
And that's what I was going to ask. I know you can't speak to somebody's mindset, but what do you think these folks who did this were trying to do? Do you think they were trying to prevent you from being able to speak your mind and show your stance on Israel?
Well, I think because I've been so firm in my stance with Israel, these pro-Hamas terrorist supporters wanted to show me that they're in town and that they are supporting these Hamas terrorists. I want your viewers to know that these Hamas terrorists are savages. These are savages that build underground networks under hospitals in the Gaza Strip. They kill their own people and they put their own people's lives at risk. And what they have done to innocent Israeli children, I'm talking about babies in ovens, beheading toddlers in front of their parents. It's absolutely horrific what these savages have done. And that's why, even though they had this act of violence against my office, I am going to continue to speak about the atrocities that Hamas terrorists have done to the Israelis, because the Israeli people need a voice, and I will continue to stand strong for them.
What do you think should happen to people who do things like this, who vandalize the offices of elected officials, maybe schools, anything of that nature, with messages like what we're seeing on our screen there?
Well, I know that there are laws in place that protect congressmen like myself and our offices and our employees. And so I expect that those laws be carried out when these individuals or this individual is found. I will say this: we have avenues for freedom of speech. However, that freedom of speech should not turn into acts of violence and acts of vandalism. That is not appropriate and should not be tolerated.
And you already touched on this, but what message do you want to send along to the Jewish people in your area, but also to Israel as a whole right now, as the war does continue with Hamas?
I want the Jewish community to know that myself, our nation continues to be an ally and a friend to Israel. They can count on my support as well as many others in our Congress and around the nation. We have in our office participated locally in candlelight vigils honoring the victims of Israel. I have also stood on the Capitol steps with my colleagues, again, reaffirming my stance with Israel. Israel is an ally to the United States, and we will continue to do what we need to protect the Israeli people and the Jewish community. What happened at my office does not reflect the good people of South Texas and does not reflect the United States. We will, as a nation, stand with our friends in Israel.
My last question here before I let you go. Looking at these photos, once again, that show that vandalism, what goes through your mind now as you just look at these photos?
Well, what goes through my mind is that there are people around the nation that simply don't understand the ally we have with Israel and how important it is that we continue to stand with the Israeli people. These individuals, like the one that vandalized my office, needs to understand how the Hamas terrorists have inflicted unspeakable horror to the Israeli people and the Jewish community, and it will not be tolerated.
And before I let you go, I just thought of one more thing that I do want to ask about, because about an hour ago, we did have a state senator out of Florida who joined us, and he has filed a bill that he says is going to help fight anti-Semitism on college campuses by punishing students who promote Hamas, support Hamas, or any terrorist organization, preventing them essentially from getting scholarships, financial aid, state grants, tuition assistance. Is that something that you think would ever be considered in the state of Texas?
That is something that I would have to look into. What I can say is that we will not tolerate this type of behavior at my office. The vandalism that happened at my office and even in Washington, D.C. recently is not going to be tolerated. It is not going to deter myself and my colleagues from continuing our stance with Israel and letting the people of the Jewish community know that these acts of violence will not deter our firm stance with Israel.
All right. Representative Monica De La Cruz, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here. We appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to add before I let you go?
I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about what happened in at my local office. And again, I want the people who are viewing this today to know that South Texas is a loving community. This was an isolated incident, and I'm sure that these people will be found, but they are not a reflection of our great, warm community.
All right. Thank you again for taking the time to be here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.